Hello, and welcome to this video demo where we'll explore how we can use Git in Studio. We'll walk through the steps of accessing github.com and creating a GitHub repository, then open a project in Studio and add it to the online repository. When using Git in Studio, we have multiple source code hosting services to choose from to host our remote repository. A few examples are GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, etc. For this demo, we'll use GitHub. To follow along, access github.com and create an account. All set? Great! Let's first sign into GitHub. Then click Create Repository. We can call it Working with Git, leave it set as public, and click again Create Repository. Once created, we're taken to the Quick Setup window from where we can copy the repository URL. Great! Now let's open the Lists and Dictionaries project in Studio. Next, go to Home tab and select Team. Here we can see different options that we can choose from. The source control plugins for Git, SVN, and TFS are enabled by default in Studio. You can enable or disable them individually from Home, then Tools, then Plugins. For this demo, we've disabled TFS and SVN. Thus, the options available to use with Git are Clone Repository to clone a remote Git repository, Copy to Git to copy the current project to an existing Git repository, and Git init to add the current project to a new local Git repository. We can see another two options. Disconnect lets us disconnect the current project from source control, and the Change Signature option lets us change the commit signature. But why are they unavailable to use right now? That's right, we first need to add our project to a source control. In our case, we want to upload our project to the GitHub remote repository that we've created earlier. For this, we must select Git init. Now we must choose a location for our new local Git repository. What is the difference between this new local Git repository that we're creating and the remote repository that we created earlier on GitHub? The local repository is, as its name says, a repository that lives on our local machine. Any changes that we'll make to the project while connected to a source control will first be stored on our local Git repository. We can then choose to push the changes to the remote repository for others to see and continue working on them. The advantage of this is that we can make changes to our local Git repository even without an internet connection. Additionally, we can push the changes once we're back online. We can even create branches to work on different fixes or updates to our projects that we can choose to merge on our main branch once the work is done. We'll learn more about working with branches in the next lesson. Now, let's select a location for our local Git repository. The Commit Changes window is now displayed, and we're prompted to select the project files that we want to add or that have suffered changes since our last commit. As this is our first commit, we can select all, type a commit message, and click Commit and push to add all the folders along with any changes made to the remote repository on GitHub as well. Since we aren't adding the project and changes to just our local Git repository, but also to the remote one, we're now prompted to add our remote repository. Let's type in the name and paste in the URL from GitHub. Click Add and save. Perfect. Now for our next part in the demo. We'll see how to download a project from a remote repository. We'll make some changes to it, commit, and push the changes, then view the changes in the remote repository on GitHub. For this, we'll use the same project and remote repository. Let's first disconnect the current project from source control by clicking Disconnect in the Team tab and selecting OK to unmap our local folder from source control. Great! Now let's suppose we have just joined the development team and we must start working on an ongoing project. As the development team uses Git in Studio, we've been given the URL for the remote repository and are expected to begin working right away. How do we download the project to start working on it? Git integration makes this task so simple for us in Studio. From the Team tab, we click Clone Repository. Then paste in the repository URL, select a checkout directory, and click to use credentials to sign in with GitHub. If you didn't sign out of GitHub, it should see you as already signed in. Let's click Open. Now the project is being retrieved from the GitHub repository. Our project has now been opened and we can begin working on it. Let's make a few changes to the main workflow. We'll open the US Cities Collection Builder window and replace the Seattle entry with New York and click Save. We also make sure to save the project changes. Next, let's go to the Project panel, right-click the name of the project, Lists and Dictionaries demo, and select Commit. In the Commit Changes window, we can see the files that have been modified, namely the main.xaml workflow. Let's type in a commit message. The Amend Commit option allows us to change the last performed commit before the push was performed. Let's select it. Since we want to also push the changes to the remote repository project, let's click Commit and Push. We're now informed that the current branch, main, is out of date. In other words, changes that might have been made to the project on the remote repository aren't currently reflected. Our options here are to either overwrite the remote content or to pull the latest files from the remote repository and then choose what we want to push. Let's click Pull, Rebase. Next, since the version on the remote repository is different from our local one, the differences are highlighted for us. These differences are referred to as conflicts, and we can see added, deleted, and modified files on the remote version of our project and on the local version of our project. In our case, we've deleted Seattle and added New York. Thus, we must choose which change we want to push, the remote version on the left or the local version on the right. Let's choose the local version and click Save. Perfect! Now let's go back to Main and open the UK Cities Collection Builder window and add a new entry with the value Cambridge. Next, let's open again the US Cities Collection Builder window and delete the San Francisco entry and add a new one with the value San Diego. Let's make sure we save the changes to the project. Go to Project Panel, right-click the project name, and select Commit. Add a commit message, click Amend Commit, and select Commit and Push. Let's choose again to Pull, Rebase. The Solve Conflicts window is a great way for us to check all the changes made to the project and choose which will make it to the remote repository for all the team to see. If we click the modified files, we can easily see what was deleted or added. We'll once again choose the local version and click Save. As a final step, let's open GitHub. Click on our profile icon in the top right corner of the window, select your repositories, and click the repository that we've worked on, namely, Working with Git. Here, we can see the project files, along with the commit messages and when the changes occurred. If we click the latest commit message for our main file, we can see that there is one changed file with 2 additions and 1 deletion. As in Studio, the modified files are highlighted for us. Great! Now let's do a quick recap of some of the most important aspects that we've covered in this demo. You can connect Studio automation projects to Git by accessing Home, then clicking Team. When it comes to using Git in Studio, it's our personal choice which source code repository hosting service to use. We can choose from hosting services like GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, and others. The Git Init feature adds the current project to a local Git repository that we can make changes to and push them to the remote repository. Git integration with Studio comes with a feature for solving conflicts that may occur when performing the rebase or push NDS, found in the Commit Changes window. When Studio detects a conflict between the local and remote files, the Solve Conflicts window appears. To download a project in Studio that's hosted on a remote source code repository, we can go to the Team tab and select Clone Repository. Great! This concludes our walkthrough of Git in Studio. Are you using version control when developing projects in Studio? Put your new knowledge to use today by sharing it with your team. Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy automation!